This is natural. This is part of the universe evolution in the same way that the earth evolves and we evolve. And then, of course, for just a moment, we discussed again the differences between astrology as we know it in the monthly procession, if you would, of the sun appearing to move through the various houses of the zodiac, the 12 months, at which point Aquarius comes before Pisces. And then I showed how in the procession of the equinoxes, which tells you which age you're in, that's figured on the basis of the vernal equinox, the spring equinox. When the first day of spring comes, where is the sun in relation to which sign? And we're now moving out of Pisces into Aquarius. So in the monthly, if you would, zodiac, Aquarius comes before Pisces. In the procession of the equinoxes, as you figure the ages, Pisces comes before Aquarius, and that's how the difference is, and that's how we're in the situation now. And that's important when you consider Jesus representing the fish, Pisces, pointing to the man with the pitcher of water and declaring that would be the point of Passover. So, you know, we went through that. And that's one of the things we discussed last week. But I thought, you know, the most interesting thing that I have seen and have studied in a while centered around the thoughts of the Persian writer Mani. And you spell his name M-A-N-I. And Mani tried to come to grips with a phenomenon that I think all of you have at one time or another tried to come to grips with, and that is, why, if God is all-powerful and all-loving, could humankind have been left in such a predicament on this earth where there is so much unhappiness, so much violence, so much disease? You know, how could this justify? I mean, he looked at the Bible itself, because Mani lived in around 200 A.D. To died about 270. He looked at some of the old scriptures, and he just couldn't understand. He said, you know, this God is violent. The things that are said here seem to not be uplifting to people, but they seem to be, you know, striking out against people. And of course, we've all experienced our own mind saying, how could God, who's, you know, such a heavenly loving Father, send people to hell with pitchforks and fire and killing Jesus and all of these violent things? So he wrestled with that, and he had a difficult time with that. His conclusion, of course, is extremely difficult for many people, because what he concluded was that in the way the Bible was written, the God that we know as God was actually the devil. And the devil was actually God. Well, that's, you know, that's a real difficult thing. But what he had suggested was, after a period of time that Satan's legions of darkness had actually stolen some of the light from God, and Mani suggested that it was Satan or the devil who created Adam and Eve. And he wanted them to be fruitful and multiply to spread his darkness all over the earth. Of course, you know, you have to be very adult when you get into talking about these types of things, because in the first place you have to understand that there is no Satan and there is no devil and there is no God in the text that we picture them as, you know, people. So he's talking about this thing that you feel. I mean, you feel inside of yourself that which is good, but, you know, then you struggle with these things that come against you and the things that have happened in your life, and, you know, you go and you pray. Now, you know, if you look at Mani, who are you praying to? You know, who's the one that's going to help you here? But so he suggested that it was actually the powers of darkness who created Adam and Eve and tried to get them to multiply so that this darkness would be spread all over the earth. And of course, it looks like he succeeded. There's some more indications of Aquarius, which we've just experienced over this last week, when again, for the second time, Israel and Palestine, Arafat and the Netanyahu signed this peace accord. Well, the last time that they had done this, of course, the powers of darkness, if you would, couldn't deal with it, and they assassinated the president of Israel. So I don't know what's going to happen this time, but it shows you that the power of Aquarius is still very, very, very powerful, and in fact accelerating, because now we have this other peace accord which has been signed. So Mani felt that after Satan or the devil had created Adam and Eve, there was only one possibility, one chance that the good God had to get to Adam and Eve, because otherwise the entire world would be populated with living human entities who knew only one thing, and that was this darkness, who followed only one thing, and that was the dictates of this energy, and who were basically robotized type of powers of darkness themselves. If there was some way that the good God could get to Adam and Eve before all of this was set in motion. And so Mani suggested that as Eve sat alone by herself, the serpent, who was God, the good God, came and said, Eve, you have to eat of the tree of knowledge. And you have to get Adam to eat of the tree of knowledge, or there's nothing left. There's no chance. There is no possibility that I or anybody else can do anything. Everything would be lost. Because Mani is suggesting that Satan couldn't tolerate that his subjects understand good and evil. He says there's no way. Because in order to control people, you can't allow people to ask questions. And especially if they start to understand who they are and what is the nature of that source that they're dealing with. Just don't think, just multiply, say amen, and so forth. But God, in the form of the serpent, according to Mani, told Eve that she had to eat of the tree of knowledge. She ate of the tree of knowledge, and Adam ate of the tree of knowledge. And so now they understood good and evil. They knew, basically, inside of themselves now, that there was a difference. They knew inside of themselves, they had knowledge, they had enlightenment, they had understanding of what life was about. But now Satan could no longer deal with them because they had this knowledge, and so they were expelled. People who think for themselves. So here they come into this world, and the conflict is on. The powers of light, the powers of darkness. And each one of you have been involved in that conflict. You've felt it in your life. It's raged inside of you. And of all the things you've tried to do good, of all the prayers you said, of all the meditations you've done, and still this darkness was raging and coming against you for one reason or another. And what Mani was trying to point out, he's saying, you can't possibly win, because so much of the world is covered in this energy which is negative and darkness. You can't. And Imani said, and the problem is that the good God is so loving, so peaceful, so healing, so soft, so gentle, that he's passive with all of this. He can't even fight against this power. When the power of what you call Satan or the devil or darkness rages, God, on the other hand, is so passive and gentle. And Mani says he can't contend with it. So it's true. And in your life, you say, well, you got all this coming against you. And somebody says, well, we'll pray for you. So all you can do. We'll pray for you. We'll meditate for you. So here now, then, he comes up with this idea that because good and evil in each human being, but each human being born out of evil has a streak. But now, in addition, because of what happened with quote-unquote Adam and Eve, who also didn't exist, but what happened in that particular conflict between light and darkness, now everyone in them has the possibility to eat from this tree of knowledge, to confront evil, and to receive again the power of light. And so the Mani says that your whole your whole concept, your whole life then is built about reaching, searching to restore this light to your life. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine even, where there's churches up and down this highway, sitting in here and listening to, considering whether God is really the devil? And the devil is really God? Can you imagine such a thing? I mean, there would be people, if they knew this, they'd be picketing and screaming and all of these things, and they'd be totally outraged. But if you're a very mature person looking at this possibility, we can consider the various angles of it and some very intriguing possibilities that are very important for each one of us as we get ready to, contend with what is coming down upon the earth and the astronomical changes. So let's be adult about it. Let's not be emotional about it. And let's see, could it be that even though God and Satan do not exist in the context in which we look for people, but we'll call them that to represent this power of good, the power of evil, the power of light, the power of darkness, could it be that